So Matt, tell us a story from earlier in your life about a situation that was fearful, and how did that shape the way how you see fear nowadays?
The biggest moments of change was really when I left my parents' home, because you grow up in a very protected village where everything is taken care of by your parents, and then I was desperate to get out, desperate to get to the big city and explore life. And at 18, I moved and joined hotel school in The Hague. So you moved across the country, and suddenly you're faced with just lots of challenges, like living on your own, trying to live in a community of other students who are all very intelligent, and a lot of them have a lot more experience. Like a lot of them were a little bit older, had work experience, and I just came in there blank, thinking, oh my God, these people are all so much smarter than me. And now how am I going to thrive in this environment? And it took a few weeks for me to adopt it, and part of that was my sexuality. Of course, I just come out of the closet, not even at home, but I came out of the closet in those first weeks there because I just felt I was hiding this big thing, and I think it just all compounded into this bigger thing that escalated when I came out of the closet. And actually, from that moment, I really felt, okay, I can now be myself, and I can really push the boundaries of what I can do in the next 4 years that I have there. And I think that was definitely a very defining moment for me, where you're just so young and you don't have experience in how to deal with situations, which I have now. Being 38, you've gone through so many experiences that you just learn how to adapt to it. But when you're 18, you just don't have that insight that you get from working and engaging with people so much. So that was probably a very fearful situation. How do I go out there and put myself out there and define who I am? I think, it's hard to know what you stand for when you come right out of high school, and you're in a school where everyone is wanting to have a massive career. So suddenly there's lots of competition that you just didn't have in high school. So that was probably one of the more defining earlier in my career moments that I really still look back to regularly.
I can totally relate to it and understand. I mean, how can you know who you are when you are still forming yourselves? How can you be authentic and in the same time belong, right? So there are all these tensions for sure. So it seems, however, that by now you are really with the feet on the ground and gone a long way, right? Yeah. So Matt, you are the CEO of Mews System, a relatively young company that was on a straightward up trajectory before the pandemic, or it seemed that way. And you are active in an industry that is heavily impacted by what's going on. So what fears that you have to face in the past, let's say, years or months, and how did it all shuffle your cards?
Endless amounts of them. Mews has been an incredible journey. It's been an 8-year journey from again leaving a very safe environment of being in a corporate role, and actually saying, I'm 30, I can take a risk, I've got a solid resume, let's do it. And I left Hilton and left that very safe environment to go into a startup, which was great. Like, it's very exciting that you're starting to do something, but you have no idea. I knew nothing about technology. I knew how to open PowerPoint and Word and write, a document. That's literally what I knew about technology. And then to run a tech company of the size that we are, we're 230 people today. But like the stages of growth that we've gone through have been fantastic if you look back at it, but there's lots of moments of fear in there where you're like, shit, how do I deal with this challenge that's coming at me? And I need to outwardly look confident about how I'm dealing with this situation. And I think March last year, we'd grown within the year before that from 250 to 450 people. So we've gone through an incredible year of growth. We'd opened up 12 offices around the world. So the business was thriving. And I think had there not been coronavirus, we probably just would have continued that growth trajectory. We'd probably be 600 people by now. But then March hit and all the borders closed, and overnight, half of our revenue disappeared. And as a leader, you can either just keep your head in the sand and keep going, and the business wouldn't survive. Like, I knew that if we kept going without half of our revenue and we didn't cut costs, we probably would have lasted for 4 months. And that realization came very quickly after, the 12th of March, when Donald Trump closed those borders, to, a week later, we pulling the whole leadership on a call. There's a lot of emotions you go through in that period of a few days, when you realize that when the world shuts down and our industry shuts down, you've got to, either decide, hey, I'm going to go back to a corporate career, or fight for what you've got. And that was a very scary week, when you just don't know how to deal with it, because this is a situation that no one's faced. So you can't reach out to people because no one else has faced this similar situation. So Richard, the founder of Mews, and myself, we're very close, and we just got on a call, and we said, the only way to deal with this is by letting half of the company go and cutting the costs to a level where the revenue sits, the new level of revenue, effectively. And I think once you've made that decision and you've put the whole leadership on a call and said, the only way for us to survive is if we make these really harsh decisions, and I need you all to back us up on it. It was that moment that was very scary. But once you've decided that you're moving forward and the ship has left the harbor, there's no going back. And I think, it's been incredibly painful letting go of people that were very, very talented and that did not deserve to be let go. And I still struggle with it sometimes, and especially when you see Glassdoor reviews, right? Ex-employees can sometimes be quite vicious online, anonymously, and it hurts me because, like, a lot of these people were very close to us, but we had to fight for the business. So it's been an interesting year. Today we've scaled back from 450 employees to 230 employees, so it's a much smaller company. And actually, in terms of customers, we've only lost 10%. And most of those have left because the hotels physically shut down. So the customers have been incredibly loyal. And we've definitely transformed into a very different company than the way we were operating before the pandemic, which, it's probably a good thing, in terms of where we're moving towards. But it's definitely been, from a human perspective, a difficult experience.
It sounds like one. As they say, reborn from the pain, right? So
yeah,
you always there's a lot of learning through the painful experiences. So hopefully it's the same for Mews, and you will reemerge stronger, or are already reemerging stronger.
And we are. I think, once you get over the worst of it, which was and the challenge we had was, from a HR point of view, you have 12 entities in different countries, so you have to follow local legislation and figuring out what those procedures were. But once you get beyond that first hump of 6 months, we've actually grown 45% last year. So we've actually added a lot of new customers because we're on the innovation side of the business. So there's no better time to change your core system than when the hotel is empty. So we're actually benefiting from it now, but you don't always appreciate that when you're in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so hard to take the initial decision, right? I can imagine that it's also a very lonely position to be in. Luckily, you are two partners who can share the pain or carry the burden on your shoulders.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Maybe that helped to a degree. What else helped? What else helped with the fear of the unknown? Because you never know whether your decision will work in the end, right? You can just do your best bet in the moment.
I think the knowledge that generally when I'm under pressure, I know that instinctively I make good decisions. Not always the right one, but my decisions are generally well guided in the right direction. And I rely a lot on my instincts. And through the years, you've just built up trust in your own instincts. And I just, I'm a generalist. I'm not a specialist in any field. I know a little bit about everything. And that combined knowledge about an entire business helps me drive decisions and make decisions quite fast. And yes, you do sometimes make mistakes, but in general, I think listening to your gut, and the gut is definitely inspired by previous experiences. So it's not, a 50-50, it's, 70-30, 70 times you're right and 30% of the time you're wrong. And I think when I'm wrong, admitting that you're wrong is very powerful. Also externally, like I don't really have much of a filter. So when I see that I've screwed up, which happens regularly, I just say it, and you get a lot of credit for that. Just admitting that you made a mistake. but actually that someone else's idea was better, and let's go for that idea. I think it gives you a lot of credits. And I think a lot of leaders are afraid of admitting that they do make mistakes, because they feel that it makes them weak. I actually feel the opposite. I feel, yeah, sure, I need to not have like 70% be mistakes and 30% the right decision. I need to have a very healthy balance of good decisions. And when I screw up, very quickly admit it and then move forward from that decision. Yeah, like,
Yeah, sounds like a good recipe for gaining trust of people, because you show your vulnerability, right, to a degree.
yeah.
And I really respect and highly admire your ability to be vulnerable, because you already before said, this hurt me personally, right? So there's a lot of strength in being able to give the strong image that you have to hold as a leader of an organization, but in the same time not forget that you're human, and it's okay to be
absolutely,
human.
Yeah. And I think that was also, when you go through a period of laying off a few hundred people, you can either be bullish about it and be unpersonal about it. But when we gave people the notice, I was in the office, and yes, we all had masks on, and you couldn't really see anyone. But I wanted to be there so that when people came in, like, at least I saw a friendly face, because these were not people that were let go because of performance. And I try, and we had communication meetings set up with all these people that were remote, so we couldn't travel anymore. So it had to all happen remote. But every month we'd have all the different regions call in, and I'll listen, and I'll take the blame for it all. And that's part of my role, right? That's why I get paid what I get paid. And the downsides unfortunately come there, and you'll appreciate the upsides even more because of the downsides. And if you don't have the downsides, then everything is just even. And after the year we've had, we are very excited about the year that's coming. But that's going to throw us different challenges that, the growth that we're going to go through is already challenging us, because we see all of these hotels suddenly opening up, and the team is starting to panic. They're like, we don't have enough people to support all these hotels that are opening up. And, you already feel that emotion building up, and that's the next challenge. And I thrive on a good challenge. I enjoy it, because I know that there's always a solution to everything, as long as you think rationally about it. And I try and always step back from it and then think about, okay, let me take half an hour to just think through this challenge, and then I'll come back with a decision or with a direction. But always step away from it before something really scary, or when something really scary happens. I think that allows me to deal with it in my own personal space before I then figure out how to deal with that externally.
Sounds like a great recipe to deal with fear, to step away for some time, to absorb it and use a ratio, analyze where it came from, and respond to it. Great. Thank you. You sound like a really balanced leader. On the one hand side, you speak about the gut and the intuition. On the other hand side, your decisions are rationally driven as well. So however, how do you see it with the team members, right? So we heard how you dealt with your own fears. How did you deal with the fears maybe that the team members maybe have? Did you speak about it directly?
Yeah, very much. Like, because there's this fear of, if this pandemic lasts, what happens to my role? And we were very clear that it was, cut once, cut deep. That's what everyone always says, right? So we wanted to do one cut and make sure that it was the right cut that we did, so that we didn't have to go through that painful process before. But if half the company leaves in a very short time span, it leaves scars. And I'm very worried about what it's done to the culture. And like, the one lesson I've definitely learned is that humans bounce back really well. And at some point it was painful, but then we all decide, okay, we've got to move forward, because we are still running a business, and we can't be mourning forever. We've got to move on from it. But that was it's been hard, especially like towards September last year, October, when COVID started spreading again. And there was definitely fears of the team who are worried that they were losing their jobs. And what we do, we have, one of our values is openness. And I think that's definitely one of the really strong values that we've had throughout this. Every Friday we have our all hands, and there's the ability for everyone and anyone to ask questions anonymously or with their name on it. I prefer when they use their name, but if you feel uncomfortable, absolutely go out there and ask an anonymous question, and I'll answer anything. I might not have the answer, but I'll generally respond to any question that comes out there. And that's a really good, it's a good gauge to figure out what's the motivation in the team. And the topics vary very wildly from the 1 week people like, are we going to be laid off? And through our openness value that we have, people have complete access to literally every data point you can imagine. Like all of our P&Ls are there. You can find any Power BI dashboard with data about our business, but a lot of people don't look at it. So they rely on leadership to regurgitate that information in the shortened form. So we use that to really explain, how our revenue works and how our costs are built up, so that we can really reassure them, saying, we are planning for this pandemic to go through the winter. So we've already budgeted this in. And I think it's really, don't treat them like they're stupid. These are very smart people, but there's just an overload of information, and figuring out what are the pieces of information that I need to pull out and share to give them the confidence that actually we are doing the right thing. Because sometimes the knowledge of and the data accessible it is scary and overwhelming, and it actually sometimes can make it worse if you look at the wrong data points.
Yeah. So there are some excellent points and some great recipe in what you just said. I can pull out just the openness, the fact that you speak, the periodicity of it, right? So you regularly speak about things and you address anything that comes your way. Okay, great. I think that's very replicable for all other leaders. However, I still believe, just like you alluded to before, that many leaders are scared of addressing fear or even admitting that they feel fear because of this sense around it that may be seen as weakness. What do you think could be done or we could do to break through that and help more leaders be more open and show also vulnerability and their human side?
Like, it's hard. Like, I naturally have this instinct to share and sometimes overshare information. But if there's this this intuition that some leaders have to actually hide the fear and just put out a brave face, it's hard to break through that, because the only way that they truly will change is if they experience that it can be done differently and see that it's done differently in other companies. And I think having forums where people discuss things, and I love these community forums where you can actually listen to what other people are experiencing and share what you're experiencing, because often people think that their situation is unique, and it isn't. Like what I'm going through, I'm sure many people have gone through before. And I always thrive on meeting like-minded people who are either in the same position or are further in their career, and just asking them, how are you dealing with this challenge that you're facing? And nothing is unique. Every situation has been faced before, and dealing with everything on your own is probably not the answer. And through our investors, there's an incredible community of startups that we have around us. Not necessarily in Czech Republic. It's, there's not many great startups in Czech Republic, but our investors are, from Western Europe, from Holland, from the UK, from the US. And whenever we face a challenge, we will reach out to our investors, our board members, and say, who should we speak to about this challenge? And they will be able to make these introductions to speak to like-minded people. And that really helps to just talk through some of the challenges. And sometimes when you speak to those people, you both don't have the solution, but just by talking about it, you come to some middle ground that actually elevates the outcome.
Fantastic. Thank you. And probably the last question from my end, what advice would you give to someone who is in fear now?
I'd say listen to your instincts. Like, fear is a strange thing, and it's there, I think, to spark you to do better. Like, it's there to push you out of your comfort zone to become a better person. So fear, I think, is actually a good thing. When I feel it, I perform better. I will not necessarily work longer hours, but I'll actually work more effectively in the time that I've got, because I'm like, crap, this is a problem. And if I don't deal with it effectively, it's going to fester and get worse. So, today there was a challenge that came up in our team, and it's not great in terms of support to our customers. But I also know that I have a solution. I can find a solution. I don't have a solution today. So what I'll do is I'll go through my schedule. I'll clear out a few hours so I can spend some time reading and thinking about what this problem is. and I know I will come up with a solution. I have no clue what the problem is today. I just hear complaints and a lot of drama on the one side, and I know not to listen to the drama. I know to go and inspect it myself for a few hours. And as I do that, a solution will come to me, because that's just how our brains work. So don't hide from fear, but actually face it and then deal with it. And I think it is a positive thing. It's, in the moment, it doesn't feel like it, but afterwards you'll appreciate that the fear was there, because it pushes you to be better.